Jake Harper woke up before dawn, just like he did every morning. The pain in his right shoulder told him it was going to rain. Not real pain, though. The arm was gone. Had been gone for 3 years now. But his brain did not know that yet. It still sent signals to fingers that were not there anymore. Still felt an ache in muscles that had been burned away in the war. He sat up in bed and looked at the empty sleeve of his shirt. He hated that sleeve. Hated how it hung there, lifeless and flat. But he hated the prosthetic more, the clunky metal thing the VA had given him. It sat in the closet gathering dust. Jake preferred to do things his own way, even if it was harder. The sun was just starting to peek over the Montana hills when he stepped outside. The air was cold and sharp in his lungs. Fall was coming early this year. He could feel it in the wind, see it in how the leaves were already starting to turn yellow on the trees by the creek. His farm was not much to look at. 60 acres of rocky soil. A small herd of cattle, some chickens, and a barn that leaned to one side like it was tired of standing up straight. But it was his. He had bought it with his military pension and the money the government gave him for losing his arm. Blood money, some people called it. Jake just called it a second chance. He walked the fence line, checking for breaks. The cattle were already awake, chewing grass and watching him with their big dumb eyes. He talked to them while he worked. Told them about his plans for the day, about the fence post that needed replacing, about how the tractor was making that funny noise again. People in town thought he was crazy for trying to run a farm with one arm. They did not say it to his face, but he heard the whispers, saw the looks of pity when he went to the feed store. Poor Jake Harper, they would think. War hero who came back broken. But Jake was not broken. He was different now, that was all. He had learned to tie knots with one hand in his teeth. Learned to balance bales of hay on his shoulder while he cut the wire with a knife. Learned to do everything the hard way because the hard way was the only way he had. The war had taken more than his arm. It had taken his sleep, his peace, his ability to be around people without feeling like he was going to jump out of his skin. The stars at night made him think of burning ships. Loud noises made him hit the ground. Crowds made his heart race and his breath come short. So he stayed out here, away from everyone. The cows did not care about his missing arm. The land did not judge him for the nightmares. Out here he could breathe. He was fixing the broken fence post when he heard the truck coming up his driveway. Jake stopped working and watched. Not many people came out this far. His nearest neighbor was 5 miles away and they mostly left him alone. The truck was black and official looking. Government plates. Jake felt his stomach tighten. He had not done anything wrong, but men like him learned not to trust official vehicles showing up unannounced. A man in a suit got out carrying a briefcase. He was young, maybe 30, with nervous eyes and a smile that looked practiced. "Mr. Harper?" "Jake Harper. That's me." The man walked over, careful not to step in the mud. His shoes were too shiny for a farm. "My name is Peter Cole. I'm with the Integration Bureau. Do you have a few minutes to talk?" Jake stuck his shovel in the ground and wiped his hand on his jeans. "I guess. What's this about?" Peter looked around at the farm, at the leaning barn and the cattle in the distance. "Nice place you have here." "It does the job. You did not drive all the way out here to talk about my farm." "No, you're right." Peter opened his briefcase and pulled out some papers. "I'm here to talk to you about the Human Integration Program. You've heard of it?" Jake had heard of it. After the war ended, Earth joined something called the Galactic Council. Bunch of alien species from all over space working together. They had cultural exchange programs now, where aliens could come to Earth and humans could go to other planets. Jake had not paid much attention to any of it. He was done with aliens and space and all of that. "I know about it," Jake said. "Good, that makes this easier." Peter pulled out more papers. "Because of your military service and your property here, you've been selected as a potential host for an exchange participant. It's completely voluntary, of course, but there's a generous monthly stipend involved. Tax benefits, too." Jake crossed his arm over his chest. His one arm. "You want me to let some alien live on my farm?" "In simple terms, yes. They would help with farm work, learn about Earth agriculture, and you would receive compensation. The program lasts 6 months typically." "Not interested." Peter had expected that answer. Jake could tell by the way he did not even blink. "Mr. Harper, the stipend is $5,000 a month. That's $30,000 for 6 months of hosting, plus we cover all food costs for your guest. And you get a tax credit that would basically wipe out what you owe this year." Jake started to say no again, but then he looked at his barn. The roof was caving in on one side. He had been putting off fixing it because he could not afford the materials, and his tractor needed work. And the well pump was making a noise that meant it was probably going to die soon. $30,000 would fix all of that and more. What kind of alien? Jake asked. Peter smiled, sensing weakness. Her name is Lyra. She's from a planet called Thessia Prime. Her species looks mostly human, just some cosmetic differences. She's a xenobiologist, which means she studies plants and animals from different worlds. She wants to learn about earth farming methods. She dangerous? Not at all. The Thessians are one of the most peaceful species in the galaxy. They were our allies during the war. Jake thought about it. He thought about his barn and his tractor and his well pump. He thought about the empty evenings with nothing but his thoughts and his nightmares. He thought about the money. When would this happen? She arrives next week if you agree. I have the contracts here. You can look them over, think about it. Jake took the papers. They were full of legal words and fine print. He would read them tonight, make sure there was not anything strange buried in there. But he already knew what he was going to do. He needed the money too badly to say no. I'll think about it, he said. That's all I ask. Peter handed him a business card. My number's on there. Call me by Friday with your decision. After Peter left, Jake went back to work on the fence. But his mind was not on the work anymore. It was thinking about what he had just agreed to consider. Letting a stranger live on his farm. An alien stranger, someone who would see how he lived, see him struggle with simple tasks, see the nightmares that made him wake up screaming. He had come out here to be alone, to hide from the world and the memories, and now he was thinking about inviting someone in. But $30,000 was $30,000, and maybe, just maybe, having someone else around would not be the worst thing in the world. Maybe it would even be good to have another voice besides his own and the cows. He finished fixing the fence as the sun climbed higher in the sky. His decision was made even if he was not ready to admit it yet. He would call Peter on Friday and say yes. He would let this alien come to his farm. What was the worst that could happen? The week passed too quickly and too slowly at the same time. Jake signed the papers and sent them back with Peter. He cleaned the spare bedroom that had not been used since he bought the place. He fixed the broken window and swept out the dust and put fresh sheets on the bed. The whole time he wondered what he was doing. He was not good with people anymore. Had not been since the war. What made him think he could live with someone, share his space, make small talk over breakfast? But the contract was signed, and the first check had already been deposited in his account. He had used half of it to order materials for the barn roof. No backing out now. Peter called the day before Lyra was supposed to arrive. Just wanted to confirm everything is ready for tomorrow. She'll arrive around 6 in the evening. I'll be here, Jake said. Great. And Mr. Harper? Try not to be too nervous. Lyra is very easy to get along with. Jake hung up and looked around his house. It was clean, cleaner than it had been in months, but it still looked like what it was. The home of a man who lived alone and did not care much about comfort. The furniture was old, the walls were bare, and everything was just functional enough to do its job. He wondered what an alien from an advanced civilization would think of it. Probably think humans were primitive. Probably regret coming here. The next day dragged on forever. Jake tried to work, but he kept looking at the driveway, waiting for the government truck to appear. He fed the cattle twice because he forgot he had already done it. He cleaned the kitchen 3 times. By 5 o'clock, he was pacing the porch like a caged animal. The truck appeared at 6 sharp, just like Peter had promised. Jake watched it come up the long driveway, his heart beating faster than it should. This was stupid. She was just a person. Well, not a person exactly, but close enough. The truck stopped and Peter got out first. Then the passenger door opened and Lyra stepped out. Jake had seen pictures of Thessians before. The government had shown him files, told him what to expect. But pictures did not do her justice. She was tall, maybe 5'10", with a build that was slim but strong-looking. Her skin was pale blue like the sky right before a storm. Her hair was silver and long, falling past her shoulders, and it seemed to move on its own even though there was no wind. But it was her eyes that caught him. They were large and violet, with a depth to them that made him uncomfortable, like she could see right through him. She wore simple clothes, jeans, and a sweater, probably trying to fit in. But there was no hiding what she was. She was beautiful in a way that was completely alien, completely other. Mr. Harper, Peter said, walking over with Lyra beside him. This is Lyra Shintara. Lyra, this is Jake Harper. Lyra smiled and extended her hand. It is very nice to meet you, Jake. Thank you for agreeing to host me. Her voice was soft and musical with an accent he could not place. Not quite British, not quite anything. Her hand was warm when he shook it and her grip was firm. He noticed she was careful not to look at his missing arm, keeping her eyes on his face. Welcome to the farm, Jake said, his voice rough. He cleared his throat. It's not much, but it's home. It is beautiful, Lyra said, looking around at the land. And she sounded like she meant it. I have never seen anything like this in person. Open sky, real dirt, animals grazing freely. On my world, we grow everything in controlled environments. This is wonderful. Peter pulled bags from the truck. I'll help you get settled in, Lyra. Jake, can you show us the room? They went inside and Jake showed them the spare bedroom. Lyra looked around with that same expression of genuine interest. This is perfect. Thank you. Peter went through all the rules and procedures. Emergency numbers, contact schedules, check-ins with the Integration Bureau. Jake only half listened. He was too aware of Lyra standing in his house, her presence filling the small space. After Peter left, an awkward silence fell between them. Jake stood in the kitchen, not sure what to do. Lyra was still in the doorway of her room, looking equally uncertain. Are you hungry? Jake finally asked. I made dinner. Nothing fancy, just chicken and potatoes. That sounds lovely, Lyra said. They ate in silence at first. Jake was not used to having someone across the table from him. He kept his eyes on his plate, cutting his chicken into small pieces so he could eat with just his fork. He had gotten good at it over the years. How long have you lived here? Lyra asked. 3 years. Bought it after I got out of the military. You were a soldier? Yeah. He did not want to talk about it, and she seemed to sense that because she changed the subject. What do you grow here? Mostly hay for the cattle. Some vegetables for myself. Nothing complicated. I would love to learn. That is why I am here, to understand how Earth agriculture works. My specialty is adaptive farming techniques. Jake looked up at her. You're a scientist? Yes, I study how different species grow food in different environments. Earth is unique because you still use traditional methods. Most advanced worlds gave that up centuries ago. We're not as advanced as you, I guess. Lyra shook her head. Advanced does not mean better. We lost something when we moved all our farming into sterile laboratories. We forgot the connection to the land, to the soil. You still have that here. That is valuable. Jake did not know what to say to that, so he just kept eating. But something in his chest loosened a little. She did not sound like she was judging him or his primitive farm. She sounded interested. After dinner, they sat on the porch. The sun was setting over the hills, painting the sky orange and pink. Lyra stared at it like she was seeing something holy. We do not have sunsets like this on Thessia Prime, she said quietly. Our atmosphere filters out most of the red spectrum. Everything is blues and purples. Must be pretty, Jake said. It is, but this is better. They sat in silence as the stars came out. Jake felt the familiar tightness in his chest that always came with the stars. Too many memories of floating in the black, watching ships explode, hearing screams over the radio. Are you all right? Lyra asked. Fine. You are breathing fast. Jake realized she was right. He forced himself to slow down, to focus on the present. Sorry, bad memories. From the war? Yeah, she did not push, just nodded. I understand. War leaves scars we cannot see. Jake looked at her surprised. You been in a war? No, but my people have. And I have treated soldiers who came back changed. The body heals faster than the mind. That's the truth, Jake muttered. They talked a little more before Lyra excused herself to bed. Jake stayed on the porch listening to the night sounds. Crickets and distant cows and the wind in the trees. Adding a person to those sounds felt strange, but not bad. He could hear her moving around inside, getting ready for bed. It was almost nice knowing someone else was there. The next morning, Jake woke to find Lyra already outside. She was standing in the pasture watching the cattle with that same expression of wonder. He walked out to join her. They are so big, she said, and gentle. Are they intelligent? Not really. But they're good animals. Easy to care for, mostly. Can I help today? With the farm work? Jake hesitated. You sure? It's hard work. I am stronger than I look. She was right about that. Over the next few days, Jake learned that Lyra could lift bales of hay that would make most men struggle. She learned fast, too, picking up on routines after being shown just once. She asked good questions, took notes on a small device she kept in her pocket, and never complained about the early mornings or the dirt or the smell. Jake found himself relaxing around her. She was easy to be with, not demanding or chatty. She worked hard, and then, in the evenings, they would sit on the porch and talk. She told him about her world, about cities that floated in the sky and forests that glowed in the dark. He told her about Montana, about the mountains and the rivers and the long winters. 3 weeks in, Jake realized he was not thinking about the war as much. The nightmares were still there, but they came less often. Having someone else around, someone to focus on, seemed to quiet the noise in his head. One evening, while they were mending a fence together, Lyra spoke without looking at him. "Can I ask about your arm?" Jake stiffened. "What about it? Does it hurt? The phantom pain, I mean. Sometimes. How did you know about that?" "I studied human anatomy. Phantom limb pain is common after amputation. I wondered if you experienced it." "Every day," Jake admitted. "Some days worse than others. I am sorry." "That must be difficult. I manage." They worked in silence for a while, then Lyra said, "You are very capable, Jake. I have watched you work. You have adapted in ways that are remarkable. Many people would have given up." Jake did not know how to respond to that. Compliments made him uncomfortable. Just doing what needs to be done. That is what makes it impressive. As fall deepened into early winter, something shifted between them. It was subtle, a look that lasted too long, a smile that was too warm. Jake started to notice things about her. The way she hummed while she worked. The way she laughed at his bad jokes. The way her eyes lit up when she talked about something she loved. And he realized, with something like terror, that he was starting to care about her, not just as a guest or a worker, but as something more. He tried to push the feeling away. She was alien. She was temporary. She would leave in a few months and go back to her world, and he would be alone again. But the feeling would not go away. Winter came hard and fast to Montana. Snow fell in thick blankets, covering the fields and turning the farm into a world of white. Jake and Lyra worked together to prepare, moving the cattle to the barn, stacking hay, checking that the generator was working in case the power went out. Lyra had never seen snow before. Not real snow anyway. She stood outside the first time it fell. Her face turned up to the sky, catching flakes on her tongue like a child. Jake watched her from the porch, something warm spreading in his chest despite the cold. "It tastes like nothing," she called to him, laughing. "How can something so beautiful taste like nothing?" "That is just how snow is," Jake said, smiling despite himself. She came back to the porch, her silver hair dusted with white, her cheeks flushed blue from the cold. She was beautiful, and Jake had to look away before she caught him staring. They had fallen into a routine that felt natural now. Wake before dawn, do the morning chores together, have breakfast, work through the day, and then spend the evenings by the fireplace. Sometimes they talked. Sometimes they just sat in comfortable silence. Jake had not felt this at peace in years, but peace made him nervous. He had learned not to trust good things. They always got taken away. One night, about a month before Lyra's visa was set to expire, she brought up the subject they had both been avoiding. "I have been here almost 5 months," she said quietly. They were sitting by the fire, the wind howling outside. "My time is almost over." Jake felt his chest tighten. "Yeah, time flies. I do not want to leave." He looked at her sharply. She was staring into the fire, her profile soft in the orange glow. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I want to stay here. On this farm. With you." She turned to face him, and her violet eyes were serious. "I know this was supposed to be temporary, a cultural exchange. But Jake, I have been happier here than I have ever been in my life. This place, this work, you. I do not want to go back." Jake's heart was pounding. "Lyra, you have a life on your world. A career, family, you cannot just give that up. Why not? You gave up your life as a soldier to become a farmer. People change. Lives change. That was different. How? Because I had no choice. I could not go back to being a soldier with one arm." Lyra leaned forward, her voice intense. "And I cannot go back to being who I was before I came here. This place has changed me." "You have changed me." Jake stood up, his mind racing. This was too much, too fast. "You do not know what you are saying. You have been here 5 months. That is not enough time to make this kind of decision. How much time is enough? A year? 5 years? Jake, I know what I feel. And I think you feel it too. He did. That was the problem. He felt it every time he looked at her, every time she smiled at him, every time they worked side by side. He was in love with her, and that scared him more than anything he had faced in the war. Even if I do, he said slowly, it does not matter. You are going to leave. Your visa expires in 4 weeks. That is the law. There is a way around that, Lyra said quietly. What do you mean? She stood and crossed to him, close enough that he could see the patterns in her skin like frost on a window. If I married an Earth citizen, I could apply for permanent residency. I could stay. Jake felt like he had been punched. You want to get married? To me? Not because of the visa, she said quickly. I mean, yes, that would be the practical reason. But Jake, I care about you, deeply. These months have meant everything to me. I know this seems fast, and I know you probably think I am crazy, but I cannot imagine leaving you. Not now, not ever. Jake turned away, his hand gripping the back of the chair. His mind was a mess of thoughts and feelings. He wanted to say yes. God, he wanted to say yes so badly it hurt. But the fear was there too, whispering that this was too good to be true, that she would realize her mistake and leave anyway, that he was setting himself up for more pain. I need time to think, he said. Lyra nodded, and he could hear the disappointment in her voice. Of course. Take all the time you need. She went to bed early that night, leaving Jake alone by the fire. He sat there for hours, staring at the flames, thinking about everything. He thought about the war, about the day he lost his arm, the pain and the fear and the certainty that his life was over. He thought about coming to this farm, about the isolation and the nightmares and the slow process of learning to live again, and he thought about Lyra, about how she had changed everything without even trying, how she made him laugh, how she never looked at him with pity, how she worked beside him like an equal, never treating him like he was less because of his missing arm. He was in love with her. He knew that now, admitted it fully for the first time, but love was not enough. Love did not make the fear go away. Love did not guarantee she would not leave. Love did not mean this would work, but maybe, just maybe, it was worth the risk. 3 days later, Jake found Lyra in the barn. She was brushing one of the horses, humming softly. She had been quieter since their conversation, giving him space. He appreciated that, but he also missed how things had been before. Lyra, he said. She turned, and the hope in her eyes made his chest hurt. I have been thinking about what you said, about staying, about us, and Jake took a breath. This was it, the moment that would change everything. I am not good at this, feelings and words and all that, but I need you to understand something. I've been alone for a long time by choice. It was safer that way, easier. But you came here and you made me remember what it felt like to not be alone, and now I cannot imagine going back to how things were. Lyra set down the brush, her full attention on him. So if you really want to stay, if you really mean it, then yes, I will marry you. Not just for the visa, for real, because I want you here, because I need you here. She crossed the distance between them in 3 quick steps and threw her arms around him. Jake held her with his one arm, breathing in the strange, sweet smell of her hair. Are you sure? She whispered against his chest. No, he admitted. I am scared out of my mind. But I am sure about you, about us. That is enough. She pulled back and looked up at him, tears shining in her violet eyes. I will not let you regret this. I promise. I know. They kissed for the first time right there in the barn with the horses watching and the snow falling outside. It was awkward and gentle and perfect. The next week was a blur. Peter came back out to the farm when Jake called him with the news. He seemed surprised but pleased, and he brought all the necessary paperwork. There were forms to fill out, interviews to conduct, background checks to complete. The Integration Bureau wanted to make sure this was real and not just a way to bypass the visa system, but it was real. Anyone who saw them together could tell that. They were married at the county courthouse on a cold December morning. Peter stood as their witness. The judge was an older man who had seen stranger things and did not seem fazed by the alien bride in his courtroom. The ceremony took 10 minutes. When the judge said, "You may kiss your bride," Jake felt a surge of something that might have been happiness. They drove back to the farm as husband and wife. The word felt strange in Jake's mind. He had never thought he would be a husband, had never thought anyone would want him, broken as he was. But here he was. married to an alien woman who somehow saw something in him worth staying for. That night, they had a simple dinner that Lyra cooked. She had been learning to make human food, and she was getting good at it. They ate by candlelight because Lyra said it was romantic, and Jake did not argue. After dinner, they sat by the fire. Lyra was quiet, more nervous than Jake had ever seen her. She kept fidgeting with her hands, starting to speak and then stopping. "What is it?" Jake finally asked. She looked at him and there was fear in her eyes. Real fear. "There is something I need to tell you. Something I should have told you before, but I was afraid." Jake felt his stomach drop. "What?" "I have not been completely honest with you about who I am and why I came here." The fear must have shown on his face because she quickly reached for his hand. "I do love you. That is true. Everything between us is real. But there is more to my story, and you deserve to know before we truly begin our life together." Jake's mind raced through possibilities, each one worse than the last. "Tell me." Lyra took a deep breath, and when she looked at him again, her eyes were glowing softly, that violet light he had seen a few times before. "I am not just a xenobiologist, Jake, and I did not come to Earth by random selection." "What are you talking about?" "My full name is Lyra Shintara. I am the third daughter of the Autumn Court on Thessia Prime. I am nobility, Jake, and I came here specifically to find you." Jake pulled his hand away, his heart pounding. "What? Please, let me explain." She was crying now, tears running down her blue cheeks. "During the war, during the Battle of Kepler Station, you saved 17 Thessian diplomats who were there negotiating peace. My mother was one of them." Jake remembered that battle, remembered the endless waves of enemy soldiers, the desperate fight to hold the medical bay, the explosion that took his arm. He had not known who he was saving. He was just trying to keep people alive. "You held that position for 6 hours," Lyra continued, "against impossible odds. My mother said you were the bravest human she had ever seen, and the treaty she negotiated there ended the war. You saved her life, and she saved millions. My entire world owes you a debt we can never repay." Jake stared at the small glowing device in Lyra's hand like it was a snake about to bite him. His mind was having trouble processing what she had just said. "What do you mean, give me my arm back?" Lyra held the device carefully, her hands shaking. "Thessian medical technology is centuries ahead of Earth's. We have mastered regenerative medicine. I can regrow your arm, Jake. Complete neural integration, full functionality. It would be like you never lost it." Jake felt like the floor had dropped out from under him. "You have been able to do this the whole time? Since you got here?" "Yes. And you did not tell me?" His voice was rising now, anger mixing with shock and confusion. "You watched me struggle, watched me do everything the hard way, and you could have fixed it?" "I know how it sounds," Lyra said, tears still streaming down her face. "But please, you have to understand why I waited. There is no good reason for this." "Because it had to be your choice." She stepped toward him and he stepped back. The hurt on her face was clear, but she kept talking. "Jake, I have treated soldiers before. Some of them want to be fixed, to erase what happened to them. But others do not. Some people carry their scars as reminders, as part of who they are now. I could not just offer to fix you like you were broken. That would have been cruel. So instead you lied to me?" "I did not lie. I just did not tell you yet. I needed you to know me first. To trust me. To understand that I do not see you as damaged or less than whole. I needed you to see that I fell in love with you exactly as you are." Jake turned away from her, his hand gripping the edge of the table so hard his knuckles went white. His mind was spinning. Everything he thought he knew was being turned upside down. The woman he had married was not who he thought she was. She was nobility. She had come here with a mission, and she had been hiding this from him the whole time. "When were you going to tell me?" he asked, his voice cold. "After a year? 5 years, never?" "Tonight," Lyra said quietly. "I was always going to tell you on our wedding night. Because marriage should be built on truth. No more secrets. I wanted you to know everything before we truly began our life together. Who I am, why I came, what I can offer, and then you could decide what you want." Jake turned back to face her. "And if I had known all this before, would you have told me before I agreed to marry you?" "I wanted to, so many times, but I was afraid you would send me away. Afraid you would think I was only here out of obligation. And I could not bear that because by then I already loved you. You do not lie to people you love. I know, and I am sorry. I am so sorry. She set the device on the table between them. This is a medical beacon. If you activate it, a Thessian medical team will arrive within hours. The procedure takes 3 days. You would have your arm back by the end of the week. Full sensation, full mobility. Better than the original even. Jake stared at the device. His missing arm ached, phantom pain shooting through nerves that did not exist anymore. How many times had he wished for this? How many nights had he dreamed about having 2 arms again? Being whole again? And if I do not want it? He asked. Then you do not use it. It is completely your choice. I will not pressure you either way. I love you with 1 arm or 2. That has never mattered to me. Easy for you to say. You have both your arms. Lyra flinched like he had slapped her. You are right. I cannot understand what you have been through. But Jake, please believe me when I say that whether you use that beacon or not, whether you forgive me for not telling you sooner or not, I love you. That is the truest thing I know. Jake looked at her, at this alien woman who had turned his life upside down. She was crying openly now, her blue skin glistening with tears, her silver hair falling around her face. She looked scared and vulnerable and nothing like the mysterious noble she claimed to be. I need time, he said finally. I need to think about all of this. Of course. And I need you to not be in the same room as me right now. Lyra nodded and walked to her old bedroom, the one she had used before they got married. She closed the door quietly behind her, and Jake was alone with his thoughts and the glowing device on the table. He did not sleep that night. He sat on the porch in the freezing cold, staring at the stars and trying to make sense of everything. His wife was alien nobility. She could fix his arm. She had come here specifically because of something he did in the war. None of it felt real, but the cold was real. The pain in his shoulder was real. And the hurt he felt at being lied to was real. He thought about the past 5 months. Every conversation, every shared meal, every moment of connection. Had any of it been genuine, or had she been playing a part the whole time? The noble lady pretending to be a simple exchange student. But then he remembered the look on her face when she first saw the sunset. The way she laughed when the chickens chased her around the yard. The way she held him when he woke up from nightmares, not saying anything, just being there. Those moments could not be fake. He would have known, unless he was a fool who wanted to believe so badly that he could not see the truth. As dawn broke over the Montana hills, Jake went back inside. The house was quiet. He picked up the medical beacon and turned it over in his hand. Such a small thing, such a simple solution to years of pain and struggle. He could have his arm back. He could be whole again. He could do all the things he had given up on, things that required 2 hands. He could forget the war ever took anything from him. But would he still be himself? Would he still be the man who had learned to adapt and overcome? Would he still be the farmer who had built this life from nothing? And more importantly, would getting his arm back mean accepting what Lyra had done? Would it mean forgiving her for lying? He was still holding the beacon when Lyra emerged from her room hours later. She looked like she had not slept either. Her eyes were red, her hair messy. She saw him and stopped in the doorway. Have you decided? She asked quietly. I have questions first. She nodded and sat down at the table, keeping distance between them. This debt your people owe me. Is that why you fell in love with me? Because you felt obligated? No, the debt is real, and yes, it brought me here. But Jake, I did not choose to love you. It just happened. You are kind and strong and resilient. You care for your animals like they are family. You work harder than anyone I have ever met. You made me feel welcome in a strange world. How could I not fall in love with you? And the nobility thing? What does that mean exactly? It means I have responsibilities on Thessia Prime. Ceremonies I must attend, duties I must fulfill. It means if we stay together, you would become part of my family. Part of the autumn court. There would be expectations. Like what? Nothing terrible. Formal events a few times a year. Meeting with other noble families. Learning our customs. It sounds more intimidating than it is. Jake rubbed his face with his hand. This is so much more complicated than I thought it would be. I know. And I am sorry for that. I wanted a simple life here. I still do. But I cannot change who I am or where I come from. And this medical procedure. Is it safe? Completely. We have performed thousands of them. There are no side effects, no rejection issues. The arm would be grown from your own genetic material. It would be you. Jake set the beacon on the table and looked at her, really looked at her. She was scared, he could see that now. Scared that he would reject her, reject the arm, reject everything. And beneath the fear there was love. He could see that too. Did you mean it? He asked. When you said you would stay even if I do not use this? Yes, absolutely yes. I married you because I want to build a life with you. The arm is not part of that equation, and you will stay here, on this farm? Not drag me off to your floating cities? This is my home now, our home. I have no intention of leaving unless you want me to. Jake was quiet for a long time. Then he picked up the beacon and stood. Lyra watched him with wide eyes, holding her breath. He walked to the window and looked out at his farm. His cattle were grazing in the distance. His barn stood strong with its new roof. This was the life he had built with one arm. This was who he had become. He thought about the soldier he used to be, young and whole and full of anger. The war had changed him, and losing his arm had changed him even more. But those changes had brought him here, to this place, to this woman. If he erased the injury, would he erase everything that came after? He turned back to Lyra and made his decision. Jake walked back to the table and set the beacon down in front of Lyra. Her eyes followed his movement, hope and fear mixing in her expression. I do not want it, he said. Lyra blinked. What? The arm? I do not want you to fix it, but why? Jake, this could change everything for you. You could have your life back. No, he said firmly. I would have my old life back. The life I had before the war. But I am not that person anymore. That injury made me who I am now. It brought me to this farm. It brought me to you. If I erase it, does that mean I undo everything that came after? Lyra stood slowly. I do not think it works that way. Maybe not. But I have spent 3 years learning to live with this, learning that I am not less just because I am different. You taught me that, actually. The way you looked at me from day one. You never saw someone broken. You just saw me. Because you are not broken, Jake. I know that now. But if I get the arm back, I am afraid I will forget. I will forget how strong I had to become. How much I had to adapt. Those are things worth keeping. Lyra crossed to him and took his hand in both of hers. You are extraordinary. You know that? I am just a farmer. You are so much more than that. She looked down at their joined hands. So you do not want the procedure? No, put that thing away. I am good as I am. She smiled through fresh tears. Okay, if that is what you want. It is. He paused, then asked the question that had been eating at him all night. But do you still want me? Knowing that I am choosing to stay this way? Jake, I told you. I love you with one arm or two. That has never been the issue. She squeezed his hand. But there is still the matter of me not telling you about all of this sooner. About who I am. Are you able to forgive that? Jake thought about it. He was still hurt, still angry about the deception. But he also understood why she had done it. She had been trying to protect something real between them, trying to make sure he knew her as a person before he knew her as a noble or a benefactor. I do not like that you lied, he said slowly, or kept things from me. If we are going to make this work, we need honesty. Complete honesty, I agree. No more secrets. I promise, and then yeah, I can forgive it. I am not saying I am not still mad, but I understand why you did it. And I believe you when you say you love me. Lyra let out a breath she had been holding. Thank you. I know I do not deserve your trust after this, but I will spend every day earning it back. Good. Jake pulled her closer with his one arm. Now are we done with the big revelations? Any other secrets I should know about? Are you actually the queen of your planet or something? Lyra laughed, the sound breaking the tension. No, not the queen. Third daughter, remember? I am pretty far down the line of succession. But there is one more thing, Jake groaned. What now? I have to return to Thessia Prime in 3 months. Not permanently, she added quickly when she saw his face. Just for ceremonies. Formal recognition of our marriage by the Autumn Court. It is traditional. You would come with me as my consort. Your consort? Husband in your terms. But yes, there would be fancy clothes and dancing and meeting my family. Lots of noble people who will want to meet the human who captured my heart. Jake rubbed his face. I hate fancy clothes. I know. And I am terrible at dancing. I know that too. I have seen you try. And meeting your family, your noble alien family who probably think you are crazy for marrying a one-armed farmer, they will love you, Lyra said confidently. My mother especially. She has wanted to meet you for years. Jake sighed deeply. Fine, but when we come back, we are staying here. This farm is home. I do not care about courts or ceremonies or any of that. Deal, Lyra said, smiling. This is home always. They sealed the agreement with a kiss, and this time it felt different. Honest. Like they were finally starting fresh with no secrets between them. The next few months passed quickly. Word spread through the valley about Jake and his alien bride. Some neighbors were skeptical at first, whispering about the strangeness of it all. But slowly, as people met Lyra and saw how hard she worked, how genuine she was, they came around. Lyra started teaching the local farmers about techniques from other worlds. Crop rotation methods from Valor 7, water conservation from the desert planet Arid, soil enrichment using bacteria from Thessia Prime. The yields across the valley increased dramatically. People who had struggled for years suddenly had surplus crops. Jake watched it happen with a mixture of pride and amusement. His wife was transforming their entire region, and she did it without making anyone feel stupid or inferior. She listened to the old farmers, respected their knowledge, and offered suggestions that built on what they already knew. When spring came, they prepared for the trip to Thessia Prime. A transport ship arrived to take them, much bigger and fancier than the truck Peter had driven. Jake packed a single bag with his best clothes, which Lyra looked at and laughed. "Those will not work for the autumn court," she said gently. "Do not worry. We will get you proper clothes when we arrive." The journey through space was harder than Jake expected. He had not been off-planet since the war, and being back in a ship brought back memories. The first night he woke up screaming, thinking he was back in the battle. Lyra held him until he calmed down, whispering reassurances in both English and her native language. "I am here," she said over and over. "You are safe. We are going to my home, not to war." Thessia Prime was beautiful beyond description. Cities really did float in the sky. Held aloft by technology Jake did not understand. The forest glowed at night with bioluminescent plants. The air smelled like flowers he had no name for. Lyra's family was overwhelming but kind. Her mother cried when she met Jake, taking his hand in both of hers and thanking him in broken English for saving her life. Her father was tall and formal, but his eyes were warm when he welcomed Jake to the family. Her sisters were curious and asked a million questions about Earth and farming, and what it was like being married to Lyra. The ceremonies were long and complicated. Jake wore clothes that felt like they were made of liquid light. He stumbled through dances, stepped on Lyra's feet more than once, and generally felt like a fish out of water. But Lyra stayed by his side the whole time, translating, explaining, making sure he knew he was doing fine. At the formal recognition ceremony, Jake had to stand before the autumn court and be presented as Lyra's husband. Hundreds of Thessian nobles watched him, their violet eyes curious and evaluating. Jake wanted to run, but he held his ground. The High Elder, a woman who looked ancient and wise, spoke in their language. Lyra translated quietly for him. "She says you are the human who showed courage beyond measure during the war, the human who saved 17 of our people at great cost to yourself. She says our world owes you a debt that can never be repaid, but that we are honored to have you join our family." Jake felt his face get hot. He was not good with praise or attention, but he managed to bow the way Lyra had taught him and say, "The honor is mine." The ceremony ended with a feast that lasted 6 hours. By the end of it, Jake was exhausted and ready to go home. But he had survived. He had met his alien in-laws and not embarrassed himself too badly. On the ship back to Earth, Lyra curled up next to him and asked, "So what did you think?" "It was beautiful. Your world, your family, all of it. But I missed the farm," she smiled. "Me too." When they arrived back in Montana, Jake had never been so happy to see snow and cattle in his leaning barn. He kissed the ground when he got out of the transport, making Lyra laugh. "Dramatic," she said. "I like my gravity normal and my sky blue, thank you very much." They fell back into their routine easily. Morning chores, working the land, evenings on the porch. But things were different now too, better. There were no more secrets between them. No more walls. One evening, about a month after they returned, they were sitting outside watching the sunset. Lyra had her head on Jake's shoulder and he was playing with her silver hair. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked quietly. "Marrying me? Everything that came with it?" Jake thought about the question seriously. His life had gotten more complicated. He was now connected to an alien noble family. He would have to make trips to Thessia Prime every few years. People in town still stared sometimes when they went to the feed store together, but he also was not alone anymore. He had someone who understood him, who loved him exactly as he was. Someone who made him laugh and challenged him and stood by him. He had a partner in every sense of the word. No regrets, he said. You? None at all. As the stars came out, Jake did not feel the usual tightness in his chest. The nightmares still came sometimes, but they were less frequent, less intense. Lyra had taught him breathing techniques from her world, meditation practices that helped quiet his mind. I am thinking about expanding the farm, he said suddenly. Lyra sat up to look at him. Yeah, maybe get some more cattle. Plant some of those crops you were talking about from Valar 7. We could hire some help, make this a real operation. That sounds wonderful. We could start a training program too. Teach other farmers the techniques I have been showing you. Jake smiled. Look at us, making plans, being optimistic about the future, and is that strange for you? A little, but good strange. They stayed outside until the cold drove them in. Inside, the farmhouse was warm and bright. Their home, their life together,